Hello and welcome to Cardinal Points, where my intention is to help men redefine manhood and achieve optimal health and vitality in all areas of their life. And I believe one of those ways is through intimate and deep, meaningful relationships. And that is our topic today. It's men and friendship. And it is an honor and a privilege to have my best friend, Ron Arsenault, on this call today. He is a clinical social worker. He's been in practice for about 40 years now in private practice. And he does specialize in working with men. And Ron and I have known each other for, we were just talking, about 30 years now. We met in a men's group. And I know for me, I joined that men's group because there was something missing in my life, that connection to other men, that bond, that fellowship. And that group for me really fulfilled that, and also allowed me to make this lifelong connection with my best friend, Ron Arsenault. So Ron, welcome.
My pleasure.
And I must say too, that you and I, Ron, have actually taught a workshop on men and friendship at the Rhode Island Men's Gathering, which used to be held on a yearly basis. And we were quite involved in that back in the 90s. And
Yeah.
Yep. So we were talking a little bit before I started recording that, men and friendship is a challenge for most men, particularly in our culture. And you had brought up some interesting points about that. And what is your feeling about that? Why is it so difficult for men in our culture to establish deep, meaningful relationships with their male friends?
Well, I think the one of the basic difficulties that gets in the way for and informs that difficulty is just our history of homophobia as a culture, and it's pervasive. I think maybe it's getting a little better, but that in terms of just acceptance of gays and LGBTQ people and cultures, but it's still a problem for a lot of men, and in terms of their connection of friendship and intimacy, mm-hmm. and the notion of intimacy. And so for a lot, I've actually used to run a lot of groups, and I would say to ask groups, what would you define as intimacy? And almost exclusively with a group of men, they would say sex. That would be their answer. And with women, groups of women would say connection, communication, et cetera, more emotionally based stuff.
Yes,
and,
yes.
And maybe sex too, but that wouldn't be number one.
Yeah, exactly. In the research that I've done, women have what they call face-to-face friendships, face-to-face relationships, where men, it's shoulder to shoulder. It's about doing things. That's
right, side by side.
Yeah,
exactly. Even very physically, like the picture of two guys on a couch watching a football game, or at a bar, mm-hmm. having a drink, and they're side by side there as opposed to face, and even that implies a hesitancy around too much intimacy.
Right. I shared about this in my Facebook Live this past week when I was discussing men and friendship, and mm-hmm. I was looking at an article from The Art of Manliness, and they posted photographs from the 19th century of mm-hmm. men who were friends, and the level of affection and intimacy, physical connection and physical intimacy in those photos sort of blew me away, because if someone now would look at those, they would say these men are gay, they're homosexual, because we have that preconceived notion, and this is how we were raised, that level mm-hmm. of intimacy is feminine. There's something wrong with it, and so we have fear around it. And then
Yes.
in the 20th century, something changed with those relationships, and you hit the nail on the head when we were talking about it before. So you believe it is what? Why did those
Oh,
change?
the Industrial Revolution changed everything. You
Yeah.
know, where men who were working side by side in fields together all of a sudden had to become kind of went to the office. They left home. They got competitive, way more competitive, not collaborative. And so, again, setting up that side by side image of men being together.
Right. Yeah. Anything, I know I'm speaking for myself, but I think this can translate into most men who are raised in our culture, that anything that is seen as feminine in those types of relationships where there's that strong emotional connection is seen as feminine. So for me, if I expressed any sort of vulnerability growing up, any sensitivity, any emotion, or even cried, I was made fun of.
Oh yeah, that's how you get called names.
Right.
When you're a young boy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're sissy, you're girly, you're fag. So of course, we as boys, as we grow up.
Interestingly, though, the opposite happens for girls and women when they grow up. If they act, assertive or angry, they get called names.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's that notion of, so it develops that notion that there are male feelings and female feelings that are okay and not okay. And truth is, feelings are human. We all have a full range of emotions. We just don't always feel permission to express them.
Mm-hmm. Ron, in your practice with men, what do you see as the repercussions of that sort of disconnect from emotions, disconnect from being able to have those friendships with their male friends?
Yeah. One of the most interesting, I think, byproducts is that it overburdens their relationships with their partners, with their, and especially if they have female partners, they try to lay everything out with them. They do all their processing of emotions with their partner, and it overburdens that relationship. Whereas women seem to be, because they can have the face-to-face relationships, or tend to have more of that, they do a lot of that processing with their female friends and don't need to kind of burden their spouse with it, or partner.
Yeah. So
that's one of the byproducts. Another one, I think, is just isolation and depression. There's actually good evidence that the lack of a good social life and connection with friends can negatively affect things like blood pressure, life expectancy, general health, depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's not good for you.
No, absolutely not. And actually, I shared about that men who have deep, intimate relationships live longer. Like you said, the life expectancy, their health issues, they don't have as many health issues. Heart, which not surprising, that heart, that connects, that emotional connection. Also are happier. They're happier.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So probably I don't see as many of those the guys who do have a lot of friendships in their lives, because when men come into treatment, it's usually because somebody has pushed them in, either their partner or some larger system like courts or whatever, but not because they're having a wonderful life that's full and rich and full of friendships. So I see a lot of guys who are in that position. They're really lonely. An interesting, I always ask guys if they have a best friend, and way more often than I would have imagined, I get the answer, oh yes, absolutely. My friend Jack, who lives in Colorado, we were college roommates. I probably talked to him every 6 6 to 9 months, and that's their close friend.
Right.
That close bond is a phone call, maybe once or twice a year.
Right.
But the interesting thing that is also consistent with that is that the notion that we can't, but we always are able to pick up where we left off. That sense of we didn't need all that contact in between. It's like we've been talking every day. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I also read research where they interviewed high school boys and asked them about to describe their friends or their friendships, and they used one particular boy as an example. And before the age of like 15, so he must have been like maybe freshman, sophomore year, he described his friendship as I love my friend, we love each other, we trust each other, we respect each other. Maybe 1 or 2 years later, they asked that same boy the same question, and it was almost a complete opposite answer. I don't talk about my feelings. We just talk about stuff. And I believe what happens is at that point, the way that we were raised starts to rear its ugly head. It starts to manifest, and what it means to be a man starts to come out.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Especially in adolescence, that's when it's more and more powerful. All those messages.
And it didn't surprise me that what I also read at that age, the rate of suicide among boys increases also. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. The whole depression.
Yeah. So what can we as men do about this? How can we redefine what it means to be a man and break free from these the man box they call it, that old conditioning? Something I've coined is the corrupt messages, and then lead to our corrupt thinking about these things. Yeah, how can we break those patterns?
Yeah, another reference to that whole pattern is toxic masculinity.
Yes,
that the kind of all these traditional masculine messages are toxic for men.
Yeah,
and certainly for the women in their lives.
Right.
Well, I think to develop friendships means that for most men, given this context that we just described, they have to take a risk. They have to take a risk, and taking a risk means initiating something. Talk if there's somebody that you meet at work or that you meet somewhere, and you say you think you might want to develop a friendship. Take the risk and say, what would you like to get together sometime? Would you like to do something? I'd like to pick your brain about blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and then if that goes to the next step, then you take the risk of opening up a little bit, talking about something besides sports or what are you going to have next to drink? Talk about how you're feeling, or what you're concerned about, or what you're excited about.
Exactly.
So that's a risk, obviously, for a lot of guys, but usually it gives permission to the other person to do the same. And then the other half of any conversation or any communication is listening.
Absolutely.
Is being able to try to be a good empathetic listener, not a problem solver, just a listener. Just let the other person talk too, and try to give them some good feedback.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think one of the other things that men do differently from women, and you and I certainly have a lot of experiences with this, is that a lot of their friendship involves activity.
Right.
Is doing stuff together, which is not a bad thing. I think it can provide an opportunity for all that other stuff to happen. Like you and I have been, we've taken many trips, we've had a lot of adventures, and adventures are fun. They're shared. They're fun to share, and and create memories.
Right.
We do a lot of reviewing of our history of trips, which is great. It's wonderful.
We do.
I love that about our friendship, that we have that history.
Yeah, absolutely. In the photos to prove it.
The photos to prove it. Which also I understand is very unusual. That men, how women take a lot of photos of now with selfies and stuff like that of themselves with their friends, and men don't have a lot of photos of them and their male friends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah, we do have a history of that, and I kind of reflected on it recently because I am moving, and we're not going to be as close, but we're always going to have a connection, and we'll be friends for the rest of our lives, and we're still going to see each other on a regular basis and still be in touch. But as I reflected on our time together, we've shared in some difficult times. We both have gotten divorced, ended our marriages in the last 30 years, and then got remarried.
Yep.
And I've been through. Your daughters have had. You have grandchildren. They've gotten married. So we've had these. Support each other through some challenging times, but also have celebrated some
celebration. That's right. Yeah, I think that's another key, is to be able to celebrate together with the events, meaningful events in each other's lives.
Right.
Yeah,
awesome.
You were my best man in my last wedding.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, that's it was an honor, and always for me, very grateful and blessed to have this friendship I have with you. It's meant so much to me. It's really taught me how to have a deep, meaningful relationship with another man. I didn't get that. I didn't learn that from my father. I didn't have it with my father. So for me, I didn't have an example. So I had to sort of learn, and that's what that men's group was for me. It was to learn how to, and we kind of did that together, all of us in that group, how to learn how to have connection with other men and that bond.
The other thing we just to state the obvious, given what you just said, is that maybe another unusual thing about our friendship is that we are 15 years age difference.
Right.
I by the way, I'm the older. In case you couldn't tell, but no, seriously. So a lot of friendships are with people that are in the same age group, and so developmentally we've been in different places in our lives,
right?
But that hasn't interfered with the friendship.
No,
probably in some ways I think it's enhanced it.
Right. Yeah. I never, I never saw that age difference. I never felt it. I never saw it. I see us on the same level, but there's also been times when I've really needed to lean on you when I was going through difficult times. And, for me, you're been at that stable rock, that stable grounded force in my life. And so again, so honored and grateful to call you my best friend. So
same here.
Yeah. And it's not surprising that we're doing this together in a time when I am moving away, and so we get to reflect on our relationship and share it with people because it is so important for men to have a relationship like you and I have.
Yes, it's a missing piece. It's a real missing piece, I think, in our culture for a lot of men. But I think one of the fears also is that it will somehow interfere with our other significant relationships with our spouses, with our kids, whatever. But the truth is, it enhances other relationships. It does not interfere.
I agree. Absolutely agree. I believe it makes those other relationships even deeper.
Yes.
More meaningful. So,
truly.
And I believe the other thing is that it helps to help men, and I'll include myself in this, to have a relationship with myself first also, which is so important. You need to start with that relationship first, and then you'll have more to give in other relationships.
Yes.
Mm.
Well, not to get too sappy here, but I have also learned a whole lot from you and the way you live your life, and you know, you've helped me immensely to grow into the old man that I am.
Yeah, we definitely have some stories to tell about, our times together, and we can make fun of ourselves. I know I can. There's
Oh God,
there's
yeah.
certain things.
That's important.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking about one. I've gotten much better with this, but there was a time when I didn't like to spend money. I guess you would call it anal retentive. So we went on this weekend trip to Maine.
Yeah, I think it was about 4 days. I think we're supposed to go for, and on the first afternoon, I believe you were out of money.
It was Ron. First day, Ron, I need to borrow money.
I'm like, what is going on with this guy?
Think about $50.
Oh, that's funny. That is funny. That's a great memory.
Oh, love it. Well, I do have to say I've gotten better with that, and thank God.
Yes, I'll vouch for that. Yeah, you have.
And then Ron has he has this tendency to always, like, if we go to the same restaurant, you want to sit at the same seat or the same table.
Me? No, that's you. No, you're right.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah. Well, what we're doing right now is something that I think is a final important step in terms of friendships, and that's maintenance. That's really, finding ways to maintain the friendship, because what happens to a lot of men in their friendships is they die. The friendships die. They go away. They're not important enough. We don't give them enough importance. So it requires a little bit of work, not a lot of work, just a little bit, just some conscious effort to maintain them. Right.
Yeah, we try to get together, on a consistent basis. And if that gets to be too long, one of us will reach out and say, it's time to get together. And we just had a dinner with our wives, and that was such a great evening to be able to spend time with all of us together. And
because you're moving away.
Right.
No, I'm happy for you, and you for your adventure, and we'll just get a place that has an extra room so we can for when we visit.
Absolutely. And we'll be back to Rhode Island to visit too, and we'll definitely be seeing each other. So, well, Ron, I want to any sort of closing points. Do you think we covered it all, or anything else you can think of?
Yeah, I think my main message consistently to men is to take the risks to bring other men into your life and to cultivate friendships. It takes a little work, but it's way worth it, and it's good for your health. It really is. It's good. That's well documented. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I love you, my friend.
I love you too, and thanks for sharing your experience as not only as a clinician but as a friend, and hopefully this was helpful for those who are listening. Grateful you could join us, and until next time, create a good life and challenge yourself and create some deep, meaningful friendships with your male friends. Take care.